In today's video, we say goodbye to Bob Chase, the Master Woodworker. Bob Chase was a woodworker of a generation that you rarely see on YouTube. He started a YouTube channel. He published 25 videos in 9 years. Bob Chase was the real deal. He built handmade furniture. He built tools for building the furniture. He taught so many people so many things about woodworking, and he shared all of his knowledge on a YouTube channel in the last 9 years of his life. And for myself, along with many other woodworkers out there, he has inspired an entire generation, and I think his videos, as long as they stay up, will continue to do so. So today's video is going to be a tribute to Bob, and the way that I'm going to pay tribute to Bob is by sharing with you guys some of the ideas and inspirations that came from out of watching Bob's videos. Joinery. It's often in woodworking that we get caught up in this idea that wood on wood joints are the only joints that matter, and the old school dovetails and intricate design joints are the only ones that are worth doing. If you talk to any of the old time woodworkers, you'll know that guys like Bob and Gary Knox and other folks who learned how to do traditional joinery don't end up using traditional joinery because they were in that generation when the newer methods became available. And as newer methods became available and glue became available, that became the faster way and more efficient way of doing joinery. So Bob taught me that, hey, there's nothing wrong with using screws, and that pocket screws are actually a wonderful thing. And in fact, Bob Chase liked to use pocket screws on anything from face frames, for cabinets, for box construction, and even used pocket screws for building chairs and tables. Now, there's a method for doing it properly so that your tables and chairs don't fall apart, and Bob knew how to do that. It was more about building a functional piece of furniture and making that available as quickly as possible so that you could get on with doing other things. Bob's workbench. So Bob's workbench design, how I got introduced to Bob's channel was actually through his workbench video and his shop tour. To date, I have not seen a workbench design, including my own, that is as clever or as practical as the one that Bob came up with. 2 sheets of plywood is all you need, and you can build this workbench. I sincerely hope his family finds a way to post his plans up for sale again, because I know many people are looking for them. A couple of years ago, I was fortunate enough to buy a set of plans to that workbench, and one day, if I have enough space, I will definitely build that version of the workbench. Cabinet making. When I watched Bob's videos, I felt that I kind of went to cabinet making school because he had such a simple approach to building cabinets and drawers. The result was really fantastic. I got a lot of inspiration and ideas for how to build my own cabinets and drawers. For example, the need to not use hardware drawer slides in drawers. You'll see that in my cabinet build video where I use just simple wood runners as opposed to using hardware drawer slides to work the drawer action, and I can tell you it works fantastic. If you don't have the money to buy a lot of sophisticated hardware, there's no reason why you still can't build really nice drawers. Bob often said that people use too much blade, so this is kind of a 2-part thing. 10-inch blades that were sold in table saws were too big for most of the work and most of the jobs that people were doing, and I realized he's absolutely 100% correct. There is no reason to have a 10-inch blade in your table saw, and in fact, I think some of the manufacturers have started listening. I know that DeWalt now manufactures an 8.5-inch compact table saw, which is all you really need for your shop. When I think about how many times I actually need to make a cut that's over 2 inches, not to mention the fact that most table saw motors are not really designed to get through that much material in one go. In combination with using techniques such as the flip cut and downgrading to a 7 1/4 inch blade, you get a better quality cut, you get less dust, you get less kickback. At least that's what I've experienced when I downgraded my blade, and I never turned back. So the next one is the flip cut, and I've talked about this before. The flip cut is a technique for getting through material. It's usually used for thicker material, or it's used for material, for example, if you're cutting thin strips and you're trying to do a quick job of cutting thin strips, you don't want to have to run the whole piece through the saw. I like the technique so much I did an entire video on the flip cut, so you can go check that out. But really, it is a great technique to know for many reasons. It's got many purposes. For one thing, there's thin strips, but for another thing, if you're cutting thicker material, and again, you're using the 7 1/4 inch blade, starting your cut a little more shallow on one side, then flipping it over and finishing it on the other side is a perfectly viable method for getting through it. It'll save your blade, it'll save your table saw, and it works really well. Bob didn't have any commercial sponsors, so when he endorsed a product, it's because he really believed in it. I picked up a few good habits from him. For one thing was the GLU-BOTs, which are the glue bottles that Bob used, and many woodworkers use them, of course, so it's not really a secret. But seeing that he used them, I decided to get my own GLU-BOTs. I've got a small one, and I've got a larger one that I use. I actually kind of end up using the bigger one most of the time, but the small one is great for smaller jobs. Another thing that I learned to economize on was sandpaper, and Bob would use the Pro Stick. It basically is a piece of thick gum material that allows you to clean up the sandpaper. So you run this through your sandpaper, or you run your sander over this, and it cleans out the residue in your sandpaper so that you can lengthen the life of the sandpaper. You can always get a gum-soled shoe and use that instead. It's the same kind of material, it'll give the same effect. What I really love about Bob's videos is all these little tips that allow you to economize in the wood shop, because that is really what my channel is all about, is saving you guys money in the wood shop and trying to bring you tips for doing things economically. And definitely I gravitate towards that kind of content myself on YouTube when I come across it. So cutting thin strips and small parts is something that I also learned from Bob. Cutting thin strips, Bob had a really great method, which was the flip cut for that. But it got me inspired to come up with my own methods as well for cutting thin strips, and I eventually came up with a combination jig on the table saw that allowed me to cut thin strips, very, very thin strips, easily, accurately, and safely on the table saw. So check out that video, it's in the description down below. It's been up for quite a long time. It's a method that I've been using now for a while, and it's really never failed me, and it's great if you do a lot of small work. Bob had a way of using more common sense and not just sticking with tradition, which is what I really love about his videos. And so I really look at different ways to do things that are safer and more effective. And one of the ways that I've done that is I built a small parts jig instead of using my router table. Traditionally, you use a router table to cut things like handles and perform certain operations on smaller pieces. That never made sense to me because it's absolutely dangerous to go running a small piece of wood through using your hands, or even using a push stick. It's still pretty dangerous because parts can go splitting up and flying out at you. So I came up with the jig board, which was a simple construction, an easy design to configure and reconfigure depending on the small parts job that you're working on. So I use that now for things like door handles, drawer pulls. Best of all, you're hanging on to the router with both hands and the bit is facing down and away from you. So the jig board is a great system to use for dealing with small parts and the router. And again, it's just that common sense approach that everybody should try and adopt. Don't just stick to tradition in the workshop. Think about what you're doing. Explore if there is a better way to do it. Find out if someone else has done it differently. And the key is, find out if someone's done it safer than has traditionally been done. I'm going to miss Bob terribly. I'm going to miss him making new videos. It was a pleasure to have him make those videos and share them with us, with the woodworking community here on YouTube. The video channel is still up. I encourage you all to go check out his videos. If you've never watched Bob Chase's videos before, I've linked to his channel in the description below, and I hope that you get as much out of his videos as I do. Every time I go back and watch a video that I've watched before, I learn something new. It's amazing how much information that he's packed into each and every video that he's done. It's a real treat and a privilege to get those ideas and that information from an old-time woodworker who's been around and has built everything from houses to intricate small model boats. If you want to help me continue to make and edit these videos, head on over to my donation page right over here. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. There are a couple more videos on this side you can watch. Until next time, thanks for watching and have a great day.